it is to be apart, to wonder how long this will last, to worry if the ones we love will be safe, not to mention the coming election. And yet there's beauty about us even now, and caring, and so much good work to be done. I'm Sherry Nofke, your service associate. Our speaker today is the Reverend Julia Fankuchen. As Unitarian Universalists, we affirm a set of principles. The service today is built on principle number 7, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part. Unitarian Universalism draws from many sources. Today's service is based on 2 of those sources. The first, direct experience of that transcending mystery and wonder affirmed in all cultures, which moves us to a renewal of the spirit and an openness to the forces which create and uphold life. And the second source we draw on today is words and deeds of prophetic women and men which challenge us to confront powers and structures of evil with justice, compassion, and the transforming power of love. If you have never joined us for a service before, we extend a special welcome to you. We hope to become better acquainted in person when it is eventually safe to come together. Until then, we invite you to explore our Facebook page and our website. As always, one of the first things we do when we get together is to catch up on what's been happening. One thing we want to tell you about today is our Little Free Libraries project. We've launched a project of setting up little free libraries for school children scattered through Rio Rancho. If you have carpentry skills, we need help building the little library structures. We also need building supplies if you have those. And we're going to need people to help with fundraising and, of course, to acquire the books. So let Reverend Nancy, our consulting minister, know how you'd like to help with this project. We also have another project going. It's a video history project about our congregation. For those of you who are old-timers, we're going to need your photos and your memories to help us put this history together. And for those of you who are newer to our congregation, we need to find out what it is that you'd like to know about our past and how it impacts our future. So get in touch with Laurel Anderson or Carol Eagleheart. We'd like to hear from you. As we begin our service, listen to these words from the Reverend Lynn Unger. Anyone who tells you not to be afraid should have their head examined. Cities are burning, hillsides are burning, and the dumpster fire of our common life is out of control. I wish I could tell you when it was going to get better. I wish I could promise that better was anywhere down this road. I miss dancing, bodies and something between conversation and flight. I miss singing, the way we trusted the air that moved between us. I miss the casual assumption that everything would be all right in the morning. These days, I'm trying to be buoyed by the smallest things, a ripe tomato, a smattering of rain. These days, I am trying to remember that songs of lamentation are still songs. One of the few rituals that are important to every Unitarian Universalist congregation is the lighting of a chalice. If you have a personal chalice, draw it close to you now, and we will light them together, speaking these words. We light this chalice in honor of the small things that can bring hope to our lives. Every Sunday, we also speak our affirmation together. Life is a gift. We gather in community to celebrate the glories and the mysteries of this great gift. In the light of truth and in the warmth of love, we gather to seek, to sustain, and to share. Love is the doctrine of this congregation. The quest for truth is our sacrament, and service is our prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve others in community, to the end that all souls grow into harmony with creation. Thus do we covenant with one another. Each week, we include in our service a reminder of the creatures who share this world with us. Here is Bram Kastek with our animal ministry moment.
Hi again. Love is a deep empathy with the other's beingness. You recognize yourself, your essence, in the other, and so you can no longer inflict suffering on the other. Now this is a little boy cat, and he is driving. It says, "Don't drive angry." Learning that Catwoman was just a human in a costume, that I'd have to find someone else to have my kittens, was disappointing. Every morning when I set down my kitty coffee and get into my kitty car and drive to my kitty work, I try to remember that although I'm a professional race-through-the-house kitty and I am known to sprint from one end of the room to the other, I still should never get behind the paws if I've recently become agitated. If I've been licked by the dog, I know not to drive. Despite the instinct to run, I must casually strut to a new slumber spot. As cats, we always feel tempted to tear through the house when angry. But the chances of sliding across the floor and bonking your head on the leg of the kitchen table make the risk just not worth it.
Now let us have a moment for centering, a moment when we simply focus on our breathing. Shalom. There's a quote that seems very appropriate to our times. In it, Bear is speaking with Rabbit. "I'm afraid," said Rabbit. "What are you afraid of?" asked Bear. "I don't know, I just am." "Then," said Bear, "I will sit with you until you are not afraid anymore. We will face it together." One of the things that brings us together in community is sharing our joys and concerns. If you have a personal candle to light, bring it closer to you now. I will invite you to light it when we light our final candle together. This morning, we light a candle of concern for Stacy Gebke. She has recently said goodbye to the family and beloved children for whom she has been a nanny. We honor her love for them and share her sadness. We also light a candle of concern for those who have lost their homes and loved ones in the unbelievably vast fires that have raged through the West. So many people have been affected by the smoke from those fires. We also light a candle for those who have been struggling through the devastating hurricanes and storms in the Southeast. We light yet another candle to mark the sobering milestone of more than 200,000 dead from coronavirus in our country. Amidst these concerns, we light a candle of joy that a federal judge this week issued a ruling to save the U.S. Postal Service from the deliberate slowdowns and offered us hope from the obstruction of mail-in ballots. For all these things, and for those joys and concerns still in our hearts and minds, we light this final white candle. And we light our traditional red candle for all the victims of racial violence. May it honor their lives and inspire change and justice in our community. Shalom and Amen.
Here are words of assurance from one of my favorite authors, E.B. White, from the ending of Charlotte's Web. Life in the barn was very good. Night and day, winter and summer, spring and fall, dull days and bright days. It was the best place to be, thought Wilbur. This warm, delicious cellar with the garrulous geese, the changing seasons, the heat of the sun, the passage of swallows, the nearness of rats, the sameness of sheep, the love of spiders, the smell of manure, and the glory of everything.
It is time now for our moment with friends and family. Today we feature the Poyani family.
Today I'm here with the Poyani family. You know Michelle and Steve as members of the board of the UU Westside congregation. This is their younger daughter, Sarah.
I am a TA at UNM. I'm teaching my own class for the first time this semester. I'm teaching pre-calc. I've got 40 students. We meet online. I have that, and then I'm taking classes to work towards my PhD in mathematics.
Their other daughter, Haley, is living with her husband, Gabe, in Boise, Idaho. She's in a 1-year apprenticeship, learning to be a midwife. And this is their son, Sam.
Hi, I'm Samuel Poyani. I went to New Mexico State University for 2 years for a criminal justice degree. I'm currently taking a break from college and I have enlisted in the Air Force.
2 other members of the family are the Beagles, Loki and Thor.
I did 30 years in the Air Force. I'm retired. I was an aircraft mechanic. And then the FAA hired me as an aviation safety inspector.
Steve just started a new job this week for the FAA, doing aircraft certification.
If they come up with a new aircraft, whether it's big or small, I look at it from an aircraft maintenance perspective, but relying on my human factors experience. So, yes, and I'm the one and only one in the U.S. right now.
Only one in America.
Seriously?
It's a brand new position.
Seriously.
It was mandated by Congress after the 737 MAX accident. There are 3 psychologists, 3 pilots, and 1 maintenance person right now. I guess I'll learn as I go.
Michelle is looking for a new job with Albuquerque Public Schools.
At this time, there's not a hiring freeze at APS. There's just a frost that kind of stops everything. I'm looking to become a librarian is what I really like. And I have a librarian friends. So they're like, you should be a librarian, Michelle. Become one of us. And I'm like, yes, I will. It's pretty fantastic.
But you were teaching before.
Yes, I was a teacher. I've taught 8 years. And so it was just too overwhelming. Every time I came home, I was really just working. And so I was just like, okay, I have to change my life because I need a Friday, a Saturday, and a Sunday so I'm not teaching all the time or thinking about teaching or planning on teaching
Or grading.
or doing all those teachery things.
Michelle checked out the possibility of a different career in nursing, but it wasn't what she wanted.
I would rather interact with students than I would in a nursing situation. I enjoy working with students. The teaching part was never the problem. It's always all the other things that go with teaching.
Now that she has some free time, I asked about her hobbies.
One of my hobbies is a Zentangle. A Zentangle, you can find them on the internet, Zentangle. It's like a meditative doodle. A meditative doodle, that's it. And so a lot of repeating patterns, because repeating patterns are very meditative. All of these I just started with a ruler, and then I decided, well, I'm going to make some angles, and then those angles got smaller and smaller and smaller. Sarah, on the other hand, Sarah's come
I have
quite
a lot
long
of
way.
hobbies. I like to knit. I'm working on this shawl right now with cables. So it's about halfway done. So that's going pretty well. Yeah. And then I also do cross stitch. I made myself a little lavender sachet. And then I'm working on a poem right now for my mom. So it's her favorite poem. It's going to be a Christmas present. Shh. It's a surprise. Shh. Don't say.
The Poyanis do a lot of things together as a family.
Well, every day we eat dinner together. That is a standard. We eat together all the time. And then after dinner, we play cards. Our favorite games are Space 10, Skip Bow, Scrabble. What else do we play?
Board games.
Dominoes.
Yeah, board games. Our favorite games are usually cooperative games like Cthulhu. If one wins, we all win. If one loses, we all lose.
But they also sometimes play competitive board games like this one, a Star Trek version of Catan.
We play
We
Pokemon,
play
Go.
Pokemon together every day.
Pokemon Go.
On
Pokemon
the
Go.
phone, it's a game.
It's great.
You gotta catch them all.
We've been playing for 4 years.
We play cornhole.
She built a cornhole set.
for Steve's birthday.
Michelle and I got married in California in 1990. Since then, we lived in California, Misawa, Japan, Okinawa, Japan. Then we moved to Abilene, Texas. That's where these two were born. Our eldest was born in Okinawa, Japan. And then after Texas, we moved to Germany for 7 years. And the kids were able to travel with us. We traveled all around Europe, went to Paris, went to London. We saw as much as we could see. We saw a lot. Our plan is to go back to Europe one day. And also we want to go down south to Machu Picchu.
Machu Picchu.
That's one of the places we want to go. Because we like to travel.
The Poyanis have been active at UU Westside Congregation, not only with planning and budgeting and maintenance, but also with organizing events like Gay Pride. And Michelle is the one who painted the chalices in the green room at the church. Michelle has an idea for another project for the congregation.
I've been really into rock painting lately. What I've seen in other places is that they built this little river of just rocks. And so they're painted, and sometimes they have like a little picture of a flower or a snail or an M&M, or a lot of my rocks have sayings on them. And so I was thinking, as a congregation, even though we can't meet together, we can have this little rock formation of just little painted, like a little painted rock river. And so if you're interested, let me know. And we could just like designate a little rock river. We could paint some blue in as a base, but then we could fill them up with like words that we love. And then, you know what, you could go out there and then the rocks, the base rocks can be there. And then you could just add yours knowing that, oh look, all these other people have participated.
It sounds like fun. The Poyanis are game. Are you?
It is said that actions speak louder than words. Sending in your pledge or other financial gift to UU Westside is an action that adds dimension to our life together. In fact, it sustains it. Thank you for your continued contributions through this time of pandemic. You can mail them in or use the PayPal button on our website. We appreciate all that you do. Our reading this morning is a reflection that I wrote in the middle of May. I call it Kinds of Waiting, a Pandemic Guide. Nervous anticipation. The virus that seems so remote in China has reached the United States and is spreading. It hasn't reached New Mexico, and you hope it won't, but you know it will. Anxious waiting. The virus has reached New Mexico. Public schools close and events are canceled. Your ukulele performances are canceled. The senior center where your group practices is closing. A class you were taking is suspended. Your guitar lessons are canceled. As your activities evaporate, you cling to the few remaining, yet wonder if they're safe. Slowly, they too wink out. You have nothing. Waiting in place. You haven't yet fully grasped the magnitude of the pandemic. You think it will pass in a few weeks, and then life will resume as normal. You are given the opportunity to continue guitar lessons remotely, but you don't think remote lessons will work for you. You will just wait this out. Adaptive waiting. You've realized the pandemic and its effects will be around for a long time. You can't just wait it out. You've been through big life changes before. You know how this goes. Put on your big girl panties and do something. Your suspended class resumes remotely using something called Zoom. You opt in and fumble through with the others. It's not so bad. You give remote guitar lessons a try using FaceTime, and that works well too. Long-term waiting. Life feels busy. You're spending a lot of time with Zoom, another class, happy hours with your relatives in Indiana, a poetry workshop, even a church service. You watch a day-long ukulele festival live on YouTube. Newscasters are reporting from their homes. Musicians are collaborating remotely, making videos for YouTube and Facebook. You see evidence of people showing their best sides. New York City residents cheering and clapping from balconies and open windows every night at 7 p.m. to thank healthcare workers. A young woman in Albuquerque taking groceries to an elderly neighbor. New Mexico casinos revamp television commercials to thank essential workers. Sometimes you feel oversaturated with all this kindness, but really, you're glad to see it. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. The stay-home orders in place for a month or more are wearing on people. On the news, you see demonstrators with guns, no masks, crowded into the Michigan State Capitol building to protest the governor's stay-home order. Throughout the country, protesters gather with signs demanding freedom. Some declare Jesus is my vaccine. Others want only a haircut. They seem like children throwing tantrums. Where restrictions have been eased, people crowd up to beaches, parks, and shopping malls, seemingly unaware they might get or spread the virus. You are bewildered. How can this reckless behavior not lead to another surge in virus cases and death? You wait, hoping you're wrong. You'll stay home, except to buy groceries. You are grateful for your comfortable house, for technology that lets you connect with others, for the mountain view out your window. You are grateful for the roadrunner who briefly graced your garden wall today, pumping his tail as though saying, "Don't worry, we'll get through this."
I always thought I was psychologically prepared to get along pretty well in difficult circumstances. I would be, I thought, as I imagined various dystopian scenarios, that I would unleash my creative bits and blossom in unexpected ways. I've been reading fantasy fiction. And while I don't imagine myself to be a heroine, I imagined I would be one who perhaps made soup and sent the more robust and brave out to do the real heroics. I might, I thought, hold up pretty well with all the resources I've worked on for so long. The life of the mind, artistic expression, a love of music, and some very small aptitude for making it. Some of the fantasizing I've done over the years was prompted by my work in prisons and mental hospitals, where my congregants were going to be staying in very small places for a very long time, without any of my ordinary distractions. And I saw that they made lives. I watched as some of my long-term patients at the hospital where I worked created networks of relationships and managed to savor quite small and ordinary pleasures. I found many of those folks quite remarkable and admirable. Bravo, I thought. Good on ya. At the mental hospital back then, smoking breaks were a very big deal. Going outside for 15 minutes every 3 hours or so, well, that's not allowed now. But back in the day, those outdoor breaks marked the day in a way that my super attachment to my meals does now. I never want to miss a meal or a snack or a taste, maybe just a little piece of fruit. I say that I love to read, and I thought that would buoy me, but sometimes I have trouble getting started. I don't know why. I'm usually complaining that there's not enough time. When is there ever enough time to read? And how could anybody ever be lonely if they love to read? And I have books, many old favorites in hardback at home, and an infinite library online. And music. My lovely daughters gave me a keyboard for my birthday this year and online lessons as well with a small group of similarly mature women. I am, to my own great shock, practicing. From about 4th grade until 7th grade, I did take lessons, and then my mother, who was completely worn down enforcing my practice times, finally gave out. And now I actually enjoy working on bits and pieces and taking a weekly lesson online. It's just lovely. Usually each week I make a couple of calls to you West Side folks, and you seem pretty okay. You're reading and cooking and going for walks and genuinely soldiering on in reasonably good spirits. So what happened to me? I'm in the dumps more than I would like to admit. What kind of encouragement can I be offering to you when you seem to be more sturdy and self-reliant and creative than I am? Well, In spite of a number of conversations to the contrary, I'm still holding the opinion that this is a hard time for most of us and lonely. And phone conversations and Zoom calls are helpful, but they're not same as in-person connections, which bring so much more. I've wondered why this should be so. Why is it so lonely when we can keep busy with emails and phone calls, and that's all possible? Well, with my kids and grandbabies, all of whom are now teenagers, there would have been a lot of snuggling. Usually we are watching something like Project Runway while eating pimento cheese sandwiches. That's a real Southern treat. It's more than 100% fat, and we only have it when we're on vacations. Phone calls, on the other hand, require a different output of energy. Except for very close friends, we have to make more effort. We don't have all the clues that we rely on to make a conversation flow. Often I don't hear everything without a different level of concentration and without all those visual clues that we're engaged and interested, maybe amused, sympathetic, and not distracted. Well, over the phone, it's just not the same. So, I miss you. I miss those few minutes of settling in before the service when we wave and nod. I miss coffee hour and monthly congregational meetings, can you believe that? And various projects, and art on Wednesdays and discussions. I suppose in more ordinary times I don't notice all the ways in which our fellowship matters to my life. How all of those prescribed activities and chores that make it run are in themselves sources of pleasure and connection. Ordinary pleasure. How do I train myself to be aware while they're going on, to savor those daily, weekly moments that fall into the category of to-do lists, and all those moments of getting ready for something to happen that in themselves are gratifying, that actually weave the fabric of a satisfying life. You know my husband, Fanny. You all know Fanny. He often tries to help me, tries to make things easier for me, and is disappointed when I'm not pleased. I do understand his effort to make it easier for me, but there's something about savoring the preparation, anticipating the event, dreaming about how things will work out that is all interwoven with getting ready. For example, I love getting ready for someone's birthday or decorating for the holidays or cooking special dinners. Just as our work in this community, including cleaning the kitchen and vacuuming the sanctuary and weeding the labyrinths and more obvious gifts of bringing food and giving donations, is in service to the community, to nurturing one another. These are also pleasures in themselves. And now, except for sending in donations and making phone calls, we are denied both the service and that sort of satisfaction. So what do? What can be done? What bridges might we construct to help us until we can settle into the social hall for lunch and, can you believe I actually miss them, congregational meetings? Maybe that's why I was drawn to ministry. I mostly enjoy the work of sustaining a community, and I'm quite as willing to mop floors as to design a Sunday service. I suppose one's hard on my back, but the other is hard on my head. So, because I need them, here are a few general suggestions, which you already know. You are smart people, but I seem to need to be reminded of. Take breaks from watching, reading, or listening to the news, including those stories on social media. Hearing about the pandemic or reading all of the conflicting stories about the election can truly deplete us. I spend way too much time being anxious and concerned, and I probably read too many wild and disturbing projections online. So my solution is to tell you not to worry. Worrying is a poor use of our lives. I do know that. And I struggle with it. I am an indiscriminate worrier. I worry about my kids staying safe, and they're all over 50 now, but you know, still my babies. That's the background music, the soundtrack of my whole life. And I worry a lot about the election. I know that the best antidote is to do something positive, so I signed up to make calls for my candidates in swing states and to send notes to people who are on the rolls in swing states but haven't voted recently, for folks who might, I'm hoping, vote in the direction I favor. I know you know the rest of the basics. Take care of your body, eat consciously. How many of us are going to come out from our dens like inflated balloon versions of ourselves when we finally get out? Exercise regularly. This is a wonderful time of year to walk, and it's magical to be in the bosque as the leaves turn golden. As a lifelong lover of Tolkien, I pretend I'm in Lothlorien, the home of the elves. Sleep is good. That's one thing I'm remarkably good at. But if sleeping is hard for you, at least rest. There are many warnings about excessive alcohol and drug use. I need to be warned about food because food is always my way of soothing myself. I'm trying to prepare meals and sit down to eat instead of just snacking because I don't want to emerge from this time twice my usual size. Anything used excessively, you know this, is disruptive to balance and health. So what do you turn to, and what strategies help you out? Decide to do something, some activity every day that you enjoy, every day, and make it a priority. Do you knit, or make art, or make music, or write poetry, or garden, or go for your own walks in the bosque? Send notes to distant friends. That's a good one because we do need to stay in touch, connected with others. If we get sloppy and neglect making contact with friends for, say, 2 weeks, and then 3, well, then I'm in a spiral of remorse. It doesn't take much to make me wish I'd done better and more. I seem to have majored in guilt, and probably I got an A+. Maybe make a resolution to call at least one other person from this community weekly, someone you don't always call. Maybe make a little chart and give yourself that gold star. I like getting stars. It actually motivates me. I never promised that I was grown up. You've probably already observed that I'm not very grown up, and so many little things help me stay on track. Otherwise, I wonder if this is familiar to you. I start off with a bang. I'm determined, I'm disciplined, and then gradually I get a little sloppy, and then I miss a few more days, and then a week. Well, you know what I mean. And surely it's not just me, is it? And please, make a resolution to help your political party. I don't want to just be scared, so I signed up to write those voters in swing states who don't normally turn out, just to remind folks to order their ballots and vote. At the end of this, I will need to know that I made effort, no matter how things turn out. I had a friend in seminary who was also a serious writer who wrote a poem which expresses so many of my feelings, and it ends well. I thought you might appreciate it. So here is an excerpt from her longer work called Pandemic. It's called Surface Tension by Tess Baumberger. This pandemic merely amplifies existing surface tensions, political, economic, racial, religious. If that were all this virus showed us, it would be too dreadful an image to look upon. In nature, surface tension has a different meaning. Water molecules are so attracted to each other, they gather so tightly together that they form a sort of membrane across which light things can dance. What a lovely line. across which light things can dance. Surface tension helps sap run up the trees, adds beauty to waterfalls and fountains, helps raindrops collect themselves along the edges of leaves, then run down the branches to water the roots. It forms droplets in the tiny forest of mosses waiting to be absorbed, nurturing new life. Here's the other picture revealed by this pandemic. As people reach out to family, friends, and strangers, we are growing an underground aquifer, a watershed discovered to be running through the tiny capillaries of human hearts and minds and streets and neighborhoods, waiting to be absorbed, a medium for growth. Let us open ourselves wide to gather it so we may send it to the suffering, the grieving, the caregivers, and all those workers now revealed to be essential. Let us send it across all of those spurious divisions, because there is a deeper, humbler truth. We are deeply attracted to each other. We can pull together to form a surface across which light things can dance. May we move lightly and dance. We can feel autumn arriving. Already the subtle changes of the season are here. The cool of the mornings, the fresh, crisp scent of chrysanthemums, pumpkins appearing at the grocer's, the smell of roasting chilies. The world's axis is tipping, just like it does every year. And life is abundant, even now. As I wrote this, I noticed. That's the needed ingredient. Just that, noticing. Being aware of those pleasures and those beauties that are part of our lives, even now. If you've had difficulty being thankful in this strange season of concern and isolation, noticing is a best practice for sustaining pleasure and gratitude. How lucky for me that in trying to prepare this group of good words for you, I remembered. Blessed be.
It is time now to extinguish our chalice. If you have a personal chalice, draw it close now, and we will extinguish them together. We extinguish this chalice, but not the hope in our hearts. May we carry it with us into the world.
Let us close with a blessing from the poet John O'Donohue. For one who is exhausted, a blessing. You have been forced to enter empty time. The desire that drove you has relinquished. There is nothing else to do now but rest and patiently learn to receive the self you have neglected for the race of days. At first, your thinking will darken, and sadness will take over like listless weather. The flow of unwept tears will frighten you. You have traveled too fast over false ground. Now your soul has come to take you back. Take refuge in your senses. Open up to all the small miracles you rushed through. Become inclined to watch the way of rain. When it falls slow and free, imitate the habit of twilight, taking time to open the well of color that fostered the brightness of day. Draw alongside the silence of stone until its calmness can claim you. Be excessively gentle with yourself. Stay clear of those vexed in spirit. Learn to linger around someone of ease who feels they have all the time in the world. Gradually, you will return to yourself, having learned a new respect for your heart and the joy that dwells far within slow
Blessed be. Amen.